Okay, hi everybody, this is Andy Gray here. This is my very first video, which today I'm going to walk you through how I processed this image I've got on the screen at the moment, an ICM image. That's intentional camera movement, for those that don't know. It was taken at Bamburgh Castle last summer on a particular pleasant evening. And one that's become quite popular, both in terms of sales and bits of feedback on social media, and also one that I kind of discovered, not really a trick, but discovered that doing a certain thing, which I'm going to show you now, certainly creates a very, very pleasant final image. And so I'm going to walk you through how this image came to be. Obviously it all starts with jiggling the camera around on site. This particular image was captured on my Nikon D700, which I think with a 6-stop filter that I use. It may well have been a 10-stop because I was actually shooting with the wrong settings, or wrong ISO settings, but I got the data I needed. Generally with these images I'm looking to shoot for anything between 1 second long and 5 seconds long, just depending on what I'm going to be shooting. You know, I am generally shooting landscapes, and usually something with a predominant feature, which can be moved around or played with, should we say. Like I say, I'm going to guide you through how this image was put together. A few things to note: I do use the Nik collection, and a few items within that Nik collection of plugins available from Google, google.com/Nik probably. If not, I'll stick a link in at the bottom of the video here. Also, something to note about these ICMs: I can shoot dozens of images until I see one particular capture that I can see I can do something with, or a series of images I can blend together to get a base image to therefore go ahead and process. So if you are out and about giving the camera a wiggle, you've got to do it a lot. If you look on the back of the camera, you think you've got a shot, don't walk away, take more. Take another 10, 15, 20, just to make sure. Like I say, I do shoot lots and lots of frames. No doubt my shutter will just pack up one day, and I'll be forced to go out and buy a new camera. But fingers crossed, touch wood and all that kind of thing. Hopefully my shutter's going to last us a good while yet. So anyways, this is the end image I'm looking to create. What I'm going to do now is take you back to the beginning. This is the image I started out with. It's not quite straight out of camera. I have got rid of all the dust spots within Lightroom, just using the spot removal tool. And another thing to note is, like, through experimentation, I've hours and hours of sitting at a computer and playing with certain colours and certain tones and various techniques. I've come to know what works pretty quickly, straight out of the box for me. I am aiming for a fairly pleasant, reddish, natural, oldie worldy kind of tone. You can think of the old English masters, back in the 1700s, early 1800s, that kind of time. So I'm aiming to produce that. But I know how certain things are going to react further down the line, and that only comes from experimentation. I've put the time in. Obviously everybody else has got differing visions. I'm just going to walk you through how I do things. And one thing I do at a start-off point is I've actually got a preset across here called ICM Turner Prep, and basically all that is a colour, a white balance adjustment. You can see here the temperature's up to 8100 and a tint back into the greens of -9. This is purely through experimentation and what I do further down the line. If I was producing something with a bluer cast, then obviously it's going to be different white balance settings initially and further work in Photoshop later on. But it's something you can play with yourselves as you experiment with your own vision and your own techniques. So from here I've applied that white balance that I need to do. What I can do, I can just adjust a few sliders, just increase the black a slight bit. Shadows are probably okay. Highlights I can maybe thin back a touch, not too much though. Maybe a bit of contrast. Yeah, it's going to be good enough for this. Right, and so from here we're going to open up into Photoshop. So it's edit in Photoshop CC 2014, which at the moment is the latest version. If you know, that's Lightroom CC I was in beforehand. It was only released last week. Very good package. Everybody should have Lightroom nowadays. It's only a tenner a month. Go and spend the money. Right, okay, well, now we're in Photoshop. Again, from experimentation, I just know I need to do this. So what I'm going to do here is create a new blank layer. I'm going to go to the paint bucket tool, just activate that, and what I do here, because I need warmer tones to play with, I'm going to fill a layer with an orange colour. It could be any in this range. I'm quite random. Just say that'll do. I'm going to fill that to give us a full orange layer. But what I'm also going to do is change the blend mode to multiply, which gives us that. That's far too strong, and I'm going to bring that down to roughly 30%. There we go. And I'm now going to just join these layers together. And then to filters is when I activate the Nik collection. I'm going to go to Analog Efex Pro 2 and open that. Obviously my computer is a bit on the old side and it takes a little while for these things to load. Right, so here you get a split screen. That first one's just an example collection of filters within Analog Efex Pro, and on the left here I've got some custom presets which I use quite a lot. These have been developed over time as I've experimented. What I'm roughly going to end up with is this one. Obviously you can see that's almost there as the finished image was that I showed earlier. But what am I going to do? I'm going to talk you through how I got to that stage. So let's just click off that. So up on the left hand side we've got camera tools. I'm going to go to camera kit and just going to deselect some of these so we get a bare canvas to work with. Distant scratches are still on. Right. So the parts from this that I use all the time. So we've got basic adjustments. And knock dust and scratches off. Double exposure. That's where the trickery comes in. Lens Vignette. Can use that, either on the make the edges dark or make edges light, depending on the image. Film type is another important one for tonality, and levels and curves to do some both S curves for brightness and contrast and that kind of thing, but also for color adjustment as well. So I'm just going to switch these off on the panel on the right. I know they're all loaded up, and I can just work my way through them. So I'll give things a bit of a detail boost, so we can get some more detail along here on the base of the castle. Probably a bit of detail to the edge of the castle anyway, because it is a rather wishy-washy image. We'll boost some contrast. And I'm going to activate film type now. And to be honest, film type you get a selection of, you've got warms, cools, subtles, normal black and whites, and toned black and whites. One of my favourite tones is under the warm setting is this first one here. As you go along these lines, basically the tones change a touch and add in noise. So I tend to stick to the left hand column of this to keep the grain to a minimum, but you can adjust grain itself on this slider here. I tend to stay away from that though. So number one on the top left on this warm one is a favourite of mine. Here you can adjust strength, knock it right way down so it doesn't show at all, and knock it up so it affects it much more. There's also a faded slider, so it washes out these darks at the base here. I tend to, for me, I'm usually, it doesn't give you a figure, but if you're looking at 75%, roughly there. You can see strength, I've got it at around 80. Not quite there, but at this point I will add in some levels and curves. Maybe just drop this a bit, just add in a subtle S curve just to see where we're at to start with. And then add in the double exposure feature and knock the zoom strength to 0. We don't want zoom. You can zoom and you can rotate as well within this, and it rotates around this selector here. But I don't use it a lot. Sometimes do, depending on the scene. So double exposure is, in this case, it's an exact copy layered on top of itself. You can't load up another image on to blend two images together, but that image needs to be created initially and saved as a JPEG or a TIFF, and then brought in. It doesn't let you bring in another raw file, which I think is a bit of a detriment. I mean, really, you could go through, look at a raw file, and bring it in as a TIFF to give you a helping hand. But in this case, I usually find that using two layers of the same image on top of it creates the, I've rarely had to bring in a different image. So this is where you can start playing around. You can change scale with this center tool, and you can see that affects the darks of one layer affect the lights of the layer below. You've got exposure balance, so say this is the back, for example, the back layer. That gives more precedence the further to the left it is. The top layer gives more. You go up to 100%. That gives it's 100%. The opacity is 100% for the top layer. And so like a 50%, you've got you've got enough of both showing through, depending on where your lights and your darks are and how they're interacting. Exposure can be adjusted, so you can have a slide it down to be dark, you know, if you're looking for something stormy or moody, brightened up for something, yeah, bright and even more abstract. Usually I'll start at 50% for both, just to see where we're at. This top layer can be moved around all over, you know, within the confines. The middle of it can only go to the edge of your existing frame. It can't go any further. But usually within this you can find a position that's going to, where the two images are going to interact nicely. And this is coming up right now is probably my main secret, if you can call it a secret, that really, you know, helps us compositionally, and it helps isolate that iconic structure that you know, protrudes into the sky there. And this is how I do it. I rotate it. So the previous brights of the sky are interacting with the darks of the foreground on the lower layer, so thus, you know, much brighter. It isolates the castle nicely, you know, into a not quite central position, because you've still got to think about your composition. But it you know, it helps with all that kind of thing. So, you know, I've got it on a slight angle, just purely going on from what I've used beforehand to create that initial image I showed you. So like I say, you could go quite minimal, and, you know, just a hint there, quite pleasing. Here I am, you know, because the top layer is scaled and rotated. This is the keep, this section here, which is that section on the back layer. And it's, for me, when I first edit this image, the windmill structure on Bamburgh Castle, this part on the left, I thought it was very, you know, to me it was vitally important that I included that, because it's another feature of the castle from the field below it. So for me, the important bit was finding an intersection point where something on the background would help accentuate that feature. So it took a lot of sliding this double exposure around until I got something that worked for me. So it was something around about that kind of location. At this point I would activate the Lens Vignette. By default it's on 40%. Slide it to 100%, and then obviously for some reason Nick think 100% is the smallest you can get it. I didn't really understand that, but I mind. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the amount of vignette on the slider here, because that's, for me, that's a bit dark and a bit brooding. I'm going to lighten it up, so I'm now going positive, so I'm effectively adding in a white vignette. You know, I could go all the way up to there, but that's obviously far too far. So, you know, we're looking at, yeah, 15–18% above the middle. And from here, I'll go back to levels and curves and basically start, you know, tweaking. So just moving these curves around, adding in and taking away reds, change the greens a bit, and knock that back a bit. I just want to get rid of some of that red, it's very strong. I could bring in a few darks there. Blue, what can we do with blue? Increase it just to give us a bit more of a less warm sky. There is a bit more definition. Luminosity, can we just add that a bit brighter? and for me RGB just to kill off the whites. I'm going to reduce the top end of this tone curve and basically flatten out those whites. And to me, it gives you the effect of like a dull, a dull aged canvas. I'm going to bring up this end just to flatten out those darks as well. So we've got something like that. And to me, we're good to go to the next stage, which is just go back into Photoshop by clicking OK. Just wait an age for this to load. It does take a while. I do need a new computer at some stage. There we go. Right, we are back into Photoshop, and you can see by the naming there, Analog Efex Pro 2 has created this layer. That's what we took into Analog Efex Pro 2. This is what it spat out. And from here, I will do a few more tweaks, and for these tweaks, I will do it again in the next collection. I'll do it in Viveza 2. I could maybe do it in Color Efex Pro 2. I could do it in Photoshop itself with just layers and all that kind of stuff. But I like to take the easy option. I do like Viveza for global changes and local, a very good system for local changes. So I'll just adjust some of these sliders until basically I'm happy. That's nice. Sometimes I can go a bit too far and introduce too much green to the light areas. I don't really want to get to that. I don't want to make it too warm and welcoming. You can see I started at the bottom and worked up. Usually in Lightroom I'll start at the top and work down. But don't do as I do. Do as I say? Not really. Do whatever you want, basically. Just a little guidance. And I would basically play until I'm happy. I don't want to keep you any longer than I already have so far. And that'll do. Click OK and we'll go back into Photoshop. Eventually. Come on, computer. So there we go. A few subtle a few subtle changes in Viveza. We've gone from this image that came straight out of Analog Efex Pro 2 to that in Viveza. There's not much of a change, but there's enough. I'm happier with the tones being less red in the walls of the castle here. Sky, I would maybe do a bit more work up here to either lighten or give it a bit more colour. Add in a subtle blue maybe. So I think we're pretty much there. So from here, obviously just give it a save, and that, if you've come from Lightroom, it'll take you straight back in. It'll put that image straight back into Lightroom, which eventually we'll get to. I'm almost glad I'm still working from a Nikon D700 because the files are still quite reasonably small compared to what some of them are these days, and therefore I'm not in a desperate hurry to go and buy a new computer to be able to handle these 50 megapixel files. 12 megapixel, more than enough for me at this time, especially creating these images. You don't need a high megapixel count at all. These will upscale quite nicely to whatever size you want. They're very much an art piece rather than a photograph in a traditional sense. So there we are. That's the finished image, and we started off with this image. That was our raw data. We've now come to this, and the original that I did is actually that. So there's a bit of a difference from my initial edit. Like you see, this way there's no two edits are exactly the same. There's just no chance of doing it. See, each one's an adventure in itself. But as an image itself, I'm more than happy with that. To be honest, it may well joust that original image out of the way. I can possibly see that being replacing it in my shop. So hopefully you've seen how I produce some of this work. Like I say, each one's very different. I sometimes bring in other techniques of blending 3 or 4 images in Photoshop together using blending modes, because my camera doesn't do it in camera. So I do all that work in Photoshop. It does give you a lot more control, but on a single ICM exposure, I love this technique. I'm just running out of castles to use it on, so I need to do some more castle visiting, I think, and a bit further afield than just Northumberland. So thank you very much for watching. Keep an eye out on my website, andrewsgray.photography, for more videos. If this one's well received, let us know if you've got any comments on it, whether I drone on far too much, or do you want shorter little parts rather than a full image edit as this is. Obviously it's the first one, so I've got to work on these things. So add a comment below, either on YouTube where this will end up, or on my website. Most welcome to give us feedback. Also keep in mind that I've got an ebook out at the moment of mainly ICM images made over in the Lake District last year. It's only £3. It's an ebook. It's in PDF format. It's £3. There's a £1 for each copy. Is going to go to the Great North Air Ambulance. So I'd be very grateful if you would support that. Most of the other cost goes on fees. Unfortunately, with this ebook world, there's always fees to pay. But a third of that goes to the Great North Air Ambulance, which is a worthy cause, and I've had the pleasure, if you can call it that, of them coming out to scrape me off a road one day. Thankfully, I didn't need them, so I didn't need to go flying with them. But I'm still grateful that they're around and they do a tremendous job. So if you could support that, there'll be the link on the screen or below, depending if I work out how to do that. Thank you again for watching. I'll promise not to drone on too much next time. Thank you very much.